As an OG thriller girly, I thought it was about time I did a favourite thriller books of all time video. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Carly, and today I'm going to be telling you all about my absolute favourite thriller books. These are books that I will never stop recommending, and they are always my go-to thriller books to suggest to somebody that comes to me asking for recommendations. I also feel like these books all offer something a little bit different depending what type of thriller book you're after. So we've got some police procedural / detective type thrillers, we've got some psychological thrillers, and all of them are full of suspense. They will most definitely get your heart rate pounding. Even though I'm a mixed genre girly now, I am an OG thriller girly. There was a time many moons ago when all I used to read was thriller books. So I feel like talking about thriller books, it's like visiting an old friend, like having a warm hug from an old friend. And depending what sort of thriller book you're craving and what mood you're in, I promise you, these books will not let you down. I was going to do a top 10 thriller books of all time, but it was absolutely impossible to narrow the list down to just 10. So I've got a top 15, which is also kind of cheating because I think in total I'll be talking about more like 18 or 19 because I want to talk about some other books by the same authors. I read a lot of thriller books, so if you do too, please don't forget to hit that little subscribe button below so that you can stay up to date with all of my thriller book recommendations. Right, let's get into the books. So most of the books on this video I have previously spoken about on different videos throughout my channel, but I'm going to start this video off with a book that I've never spoken about before, The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, and this one is available on Kindle Unlimited. This book has actually been made into a film, but as always, the book, in my opinion, was much better. It follows the story of Anna Fox. She hasn't left her house for 10 months, and her only connection to the outside world is sitting on her windowsill and staring out of her window. She sits there for hours on end, watching the world go by, nosing on her neighbours, and one evening she hears a terrifying scream. She looks out of her window and witnesses the most horrifying crime. Anna's thinking to herself that she needs to uncover the truth, like she's panicking, she doesn't know what on earth to do, but she's not the most reliable narrator, not just within the book, but in her own life. So she's not sure that people will believe her if she says what she's seen, because obviously it's her word against theirs, and she's not sure she can even trust herself. I love this book so much. I read it years ago and I can still remember exactly what happened. It left such an impression on me. It was so claustrophobic because Anna doesn't leave her house. We've got like the claustrophobic vibes of that. We've got the unreliable narrator element, which I personally love. I found this to be so fast paced. I couldn't put it down. My heart was pounding while I was reading it. And the way it was written, it actually played out like a film in my head. Honestly, I cannot recommend this book enough. And in my opinion, I think it is extremely underrated. Right, next up, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to give you 3 for the price of 1. I'm going to give you 3 Chris Carter books. So I have previously mentioned the Chris Carter series on my channel a few times in a few of my previous videos. But if you haven't watched any of my previous videos, then basically this series follows Robert Hunter and his partner Garcia. They both work in the ultra-violent crimes unit in LA, and they hunt the most violent, horrendous serial killers. And whenever I recommend these to anybody, I always say that they remind me of Criminal Minds, but with the gore of the Saw films. So, I mean, take from that what you will. To be honest, I would recommend the series as a whole. All of the books have short, punchy chapters, which always end on a cliffhanger. They are so addictive to read, so fast-paced, even though some of them are quite chunky. There are 13 books in the series. They can all be read as standalones. I have actually read 11 out of the 13 books. I am actually currently reading my 12th book in the series. So once I've finished reading the whole series, I will actually rank them for you. But for now, I'm going to recommend 3 books from the series. Book 2, which is The Executioner. And there is one scene in this book that is so horrendous. It will forever live rent-free in my head. And if you have read this book, you will know exactly the scene I am talking about. To be honest, I think about the scene in this book pretty much on a daily basis. I will just be going about my day-to-day life, having a lovely time, and then all of a sudden I'll remember this horrendous scene and I'm like, oh, not having a lovely time anymore. I also recommend book 5, which is One by One. And in this book, our serial killer sends Robert Hunter a link to this private website where he's doing not very nice things over this broadcast. He kind of escalates and involves the public. So basically he gets the public to vote how his victims. This one especially had my heart racing while I was reading it because you've got this race against time. I'm sure there's like a countdown clock in it. Honestly, it gave me the most horrendous anxiety, but I had the best time while I was reading it. And I also want to recommend book number 6, which is An Evil Mind. And the serial killer in this one is actually one of my favourite characters in a book. The way Chris Carter wrote this main character, again, if you have read this book, you will know exactly what I mean. Honestly, the vibes were just spot on. The serial killer in this book kind of gave me like Hannibal Lecter vibes. He was really cool and calm and he gave me the chills, to be honest. So yeah, highly recommend the Chris Carter series as a whole. But if you're looking to dip your toe in, then those are 3 from the series that I particularly recommend. Next up, we have got Next of Kin by Kia Abdullah. And this one is available on Kindle Unlimited. This is another one that gave me the worst anxiety when I was reading it. To be honest, I feel like most of these books gave me the worst anxiety. Even though I'm a very anxious person in general, I love making myself feel even more anxious when I read my books. I don't know, make it make sense. So in this book, we follow Layla. She is supposed to be dropping her nephew off to nursery, but on the way to nursery, she gets distracted and she forgets that he's in the back of the car. Layla goes into work without a care in the world, still forgetting that her nephew's in the back of the car, and she leaves him there on the hottest day of the year. Unfortunately, things don't end very well. This all happens right at the beginning of the book as well. There's no spoilers. When I first went into this book, I thought to myself, how is this going to work? Like, the main event has happened right at the beginning. How is the rest of the book going to play out? And honestly, I don't know what Kia Abdullah put into this book, but I was addicted. I could not stop reading. I was so invested in the whole story. I was invested in all of the characters, like surrounding what had happened, and the twists at the end of this book literally gave me whiplash. There were so many twists, so many completely unexpected twists. I didn't see any of them coming. If you love a thriller book, you absolutely need to add this one to your list. Next up, we have got The Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean, and this one is a snack-sized thriller book. It is just over 250 pages, and it is so fast-paced, I read it in one sitting. It follows the story of Jane, and she is being held captive by her own husband. She is getting more and more desperate to escape her very miserable existence. He records her every move, and he is getting more and more abusive as the days go on. This is another one that made me feel so claustrophobic while I was reading it. The captivity trope always does it. It just makes me feel like I can't breathe when I'm reading the book. And to be honest, I don't feel like I've done the book justice. It doesn't even sound as good as it is. This is exactly how you write a thriller. I was addicted the whole way through. I think I've already said that. I was so addicted, I said it twice. But yeah, this is another one that you need to add to your thriller TBR if you love a short, punchy, fast-paced, anxiety-inducing, claustrophobic thriller. Next up, we have got The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard. And I know reading is subjective, but I'm just going to put it out there and say the 3.8 star rating for this book on Amazon is lying. It follows the story of a woman who walks the dark roads in the middle of the night, trying to get herself kidnapped by the same man that kidnapped her sister a year ago. And yes, I know it is as crazy as it sounds. This book is so atmospheric, and this is another one that gave me horrendous anxiety while I was reading it. And I'm not going to tell you too much more about the plot because I feel like I would spoil it if I said any more. All I'm going to say is this book has one of the most jaw-dropping plot twists that I have ever read. Next up, we have got The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torre. And this book follows our main female character called Deanna. And this is kind of like another one where our main character hasn't left their apartment for a very long time. In this book, Deanna hasn't left her apartment for 3 years out of choice because she doesn't trust herself and her killer urges. She basically gets her neighbour to lock her in every night. Anything she needs, she orders in to be delivered. The concept is absolutely crazy. She makes her living performing over webcams, if you know what I mean. Gotta be careful what I'm saying on my channel. A young girl called Annie goes missing, and Deanna realises that the description of this girl is scarily similar to one of her online clients' sick fantasies. To be honest, I would say the first half of this book was more on the slow burn side than I usually like in my thriller books. It is also full of schmecks. I've got to be careful what I'm saying on my channel because I don't want to get banned. So I'm just going to kind of put a disclaimer in for that because it is full of it, obviously, because that's what Deanna's job is. But I don't know why, and I don't know what was in this book, but it didn't put me off, and I was invested the whole way through. And then there was just a point where it was like a switch went off and the pacing picked right up, and oh my God, I was literally devouring the pages while I was reading it. This is another one that is such an underrated book, and I highly recommend. Right, next up we have got an absolute classic, The Housemaid by Freida McFadden, and this one is available on Kindle Unlimited as well. And I know I feel like I've spoken about this book quite a few times on my channel, and I feel like this book is everywhere, but sometimes the classics are classics for a reason, and I couldn't leave it out of this video because this is actually the book that got me back into reading. It follows the story of our main character called Millie. She has landed a job as a live-in cleaner / nanny for the Winchesters. Millie is an ex-con, and she's hiding the secrets of why she's an ex-con. But after she spent a few weeks with the Winchesters, she realises that they are hiding some secrets of their own, and those secrets may actually be worse than Millie's. This is everything you could want from a thriller book. I would say it's kind of like a popcorn thriller book. It is easy to digest. It is classic Freida McFadden. I think this is my favourite Freida McFadden book. The pacing was spot on from the very first page. This one is actually my go-to book that I will always recommend to somebody that's looking to dip their toe, either into reading or into the thriller genre. Right, next up we have got Kill for Me, Kill for You by Steve Kavanagh, and I am actually going to read the blurb for this one because I feel like the blurb can do a much better job than I can with this book. So it says, one dark evening in New York City, two strangers meet by chance. Over drinks, Amanda and Wendy realise they have so much in common. They both feel alone, they both drink alone, and they both desperately want revenge against the two men who destroyed their families. Together, they have the perfect plan. If you kill for me, I'll kill for you. Honestly, this book, I'm not going to say too much more about it because the blurb is absolutely spot on. This book was another one that kept me guessing the whole way through. I couldn't turn the pages quick enough. I didn't want to put it down. And when I had to put it down, I couldn't wait to pick it back up. Honestly, you know those books where you are so obsessed, you cannot wait to pick them back up again. This was that book. And it is one of my favourite thrillers of all time, obviously, because it wouldn't be in this video otherwise. Next up, we have got Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, and I know I am like a stuck record, but I couldn't do a favourite thriller books of all time video and leave this one out. So very briefly, because I do feel like I've spoken about this on a very recent video, I think it was my autumn reading guide. It follows the story of Grady Green. He is an author who is suffering from the worst writer's block because a year ago his wife went missing and he hasn't been able to concentrate since. To try and get the creative juices flowing again, Grady goes to this isolated Scottish island to stay in this cabin in the middle of a very creepy and eerie forest. And whilst he's on this island, he thinks he sees his missing wife. And that's all I'm going to say. It is quite fever dreamy to read because you have got this very eerie setting on this isolated island where you've got this descending mist that literally appears out of nowhere. This is one of my absolute favourite thriller books because of the setting. This was another one that I was gripped the whole way through. And in classic Alice Feeney style, she got me with the most jaw-dropping twist. And I literally gasped out loud when I read it. So yeah, I couldn't leave it out of this video. And I also want to give a special mention to Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, which is actually available on Kindle Unlimited. And I really struggle to pick which one to talk about for this video. So I'm just going to briefly talk about both because I feel like they both have very similar settings, very similar vibes. And Rock, Paper, Scissors was another one with a jaw-dropping twist that was actually so crazy. I went back and reread the previous couple of chapters because I thought I'd read it wrong. You know when your mind is so blown that it leaves you confused? My flabbers were well and truly gasted, and yeah, highly recommend both. Next up, we have got an extremely underrated thriller, in my opinion, Still House Lake by Rachel Caine, and this is another one that's available on Kindle Unlimited. This follows the story of our main character called Gina, and after a freak accident, she discovers that her husband has been living a secret life as a very dangerous, violent serial killer. She soon realizes that she must escape the chaos that her husband has left behind, and she creates a new life and a new identity for herself and her children. However, Gina has got online trolls and online stalkers who are convinced that she was involved in her husband's crimes. And they are getting closer and closer to Gina's new identity and her new location. I think I'm probably going to say this about every single book in this video, but this was another one that gave me the most horrendous anxiety while I was reading it. I was sweating while I was reading this book. And just to kind of put it into perspective, like how anxiety inducing this book is, Gina actually has a panic room in her new home. So those are kind of the vibes we're working with. This is actually part of a series. It is book 1 in, I believe there are 6 in the series. And it's another one with a jaw-dropping twist at the end. And another one that I highly recommend. Next up, we have got Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. And this is another one that I have recently mentioned on my channel in my autumn reading guide video. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but basically this one is actually a little bit different in the sense that we've got like a time slip element. So it follows our main character. She's a mum, and one evening she is looking out the window waiting for her son to come home after he's been on a night out. And while she's stood looking out the window, she witnesses her son somebody. She starts panicking. She hasn't got a clue what's going on. Her son is charged with murder. And after a very stressful evening, she goes home, goes to bed, and the next morning when she wakes up, it is actually the day before the murder. Every day she wakes up, she goes further and further back in time, and she must try and piece together the events that led up to her son doing what he did, and ultimately see if she can try and stop the crime from happening again. I feel like this book isn't going to be for everybody. I think if you go into it suspending your disbelief, then you are not going to be disappointed. I mean, obviously it's not realistic because we don't actually time travel and go back in time. But if you just go into it expecting to have a good time, then you're not going to be disappointed because this is another one with a jaw-dropping twist. Next up, we have got The Passengers by John Marrs. And honestly, I really struggled to pick my favourite John Marrs book for this video, but I finally settled on this one. And the reason I settled on this one is because for me, this is his most fast-paced, crazy, anxiety-inducing book, in my humble opinion. So John Marrs actually writes 2 types of thriller books. He writes your standard psychological thrillers, and he also writes near-future speculative thrillers, which I think actually fall into the sci-fi category, but I am not a sci-fi girly at all. And these ones just remind me of Black Mirror. So if you enjoyed Black Mirror, then you will absolutely love his speculative thriller books. In this book, we live in a time where we have driverless vehicles. And the reason I love these books so much is because they're not actually that far from the society we live in today. Like, it's not that unrealistic to have driverless cars. Anyway, we have got 8 people in this book who all get into their driverless cars one morning. Their cars have been hacked and every single one of them has been set on a high-speed collision course. Honestly, I was panicking while I was reading this book. So basically, this hacker then gets the public to vote which one deserves to survive. He gives each victim, I think he gives them like a minute to kind of like plead their cause. This book is absolutely wild. There are twists throughout the whole book. Like I said, because you've got the high-speed collision course and you've got the loss of control of the car, honestly, that is one thing that absolutely terrifies me. Like, can you imagine like driving along and you've lost control of your car? Like, I would be terrified. And I just think it is such a unique concept and it's perfect if you're looking for something a little bit different from your thriller books. Next up, we have got The Echo Man by Sam Holland. And this book literally had me sat on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading it. This is about a serial killer who is copying other prolific serial killers and is staging their crimes to look exactly like the original crime scenes. But this serial killer is getting fed up of copying all the other serial killers and they are ready to create a masterpiece of their own. Honestly, this book is another one. I actually think this is so underrated too. It's another one that's very graphic and very dark, so do check trigger warnings before you go into it. It is book 1. I think it's either 3 or 4. I think maybe book 4 may have just been released. I've only actually read the first one and I don't know why I've not read the others because this is one of my all-time favourite thriller books, obviously. I love me a serial killer thriller book and this is more of a kind of like police procedural type book. So if that's your thing, then definitely give this one a go. Next up, we have got Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent, and Sally Diamond is one of my favourite characters in a book ever. A bold statement, I know. It follows the story of Sally Diamond, and the opening chapter begins with Sally putting her dead father out with the bins because that's what he told her to do as a joke, and she's taken him literally and put him out with the bins. Sally ends up getting into trouble because of this with the police. She can't understand why. In his will, Sally's father has left her 3 letters to open upon his death. The first one is the real funeral arrangements that he meant for her to follow. And the others kind of tell a different story about Sally's past and her childhood. And essentially, the rest of the book is about Sally's very, very dark childhood. There's another character involved. Again, this book is very dark. It is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. Please check trigger warnings before you go into it. I think in the UK, the cover looks quite fun. And I did have a fun time while I was reading it because of Sally's character. But the rest of the story is definitely not fun to read. So yeah, definitely check your trigger warnings before you go into it. But honestly, if you haven't read this book yet, I do feel like this has been so hyped up and sometimes hype can spoil a book, but just go into it, ignore the hype. Make up your own mind. This is a book that I will always recommend. And last but not least, I couldn't leave it out to this video, could I? Even though I think I've mentioned it on nearly every one of my videos. The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Honestly, if somebody said to me, right, you need to give me your favourite thriller books of all time, this one would be really near the top. I don't know if I could choose one favourite, but I've managed to narrow it down to 15, but this one would be right at the top of my list. I absolutely loved it. Just in case you haven't seen any of my other videos talking about this book, it is basically about Lenora Hope. She is mute, paralysed and bound to a wheelchair, and everybody thinks Lenora is responsible for the murder of her entire family decades ago. The rumours have been circulating for years because Lenora is mute and has been unable to tell her own side of the story. However, Lenora gets a new live-in caregiver who brings her a typewriter, and slowly, one by one, Lenora starts typing out her side of the story and what happened that night. I loved everything about this book. I love the setting. It is set in this kind of like creepy gothic house that's perched on top of a cliff. The cliff is falling apart, the house is falling apart, the family is falling apart. So I just loved that setting. It is actually quite creepy. I think it's the setting and the unexplained noises at night. Like, this is the perfect setting for a thriller book. I loved not knowing Lenora's story and having to wait. I loved like the slow burn tension of having to wait for her to literally type one by one her side of the story. I was like, come on, Lenora, hurry up. Like, I need to know what happened. And if that wasn't enough, the amount of twists, this is on par with Next of Kin. The amount of twists at the end of this book are absolutely crazy. Like, you are literally hit with twist after twist after twist. I was so confident. About maybe 70-80% into this book, I thought, I've guessed the twist. I know it. Well, not only was I wrong about the twist, like there were about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 different twists, and I hadn't even guessed one of them right. Honestly, the end of this book was so crazy. I actually felt like I needed to have a lie down after I'd read it. And that is the end of the list. Those are 15/19, I can't actually remember how many I spoke about, of my favourite thriller books of all time. These are the books that I will literally die on this hill recommending to anybody that asks for thriller book recommendations. I want to know what your favourite thriller books are. Like, if you could only recommend me one thriller book, I know I'm making this very hard, what would it be? But I will allow a list. If like me, you can't narrow it down, then give me a list of all of your favourite thriller books, because I am always looking to extend my never-ending TBR. I really hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you got some inspiration for your reading list. If you did enjoy watching, please don't forget to hit that little subscribe button below. I would absolutely love it if you decided to stick around. And yeah, I will leave it there for now, and I'll catch you all next time.